morning, fourth grade. I have a huge shout out for everyone who has logged into Clever and has started or completed their homework that's due this week on the Olympians. For instance, I know Naeem logged in and got started, Messiah logged in and got started, Trinity logged in and got started, Quadir logged in and got started. If there's anyone else that I forget, please forgive me. I don't have it up on my screen right now, but I'm super proud of those who have completed the 2 lessons and is ready to move forward. I was online myself noticing a few things about the articles, and one, I just wanted to quickly in this video recap on how to figure out the main idea. So this will be a quick overview. Grab your notebook and a pencil so that you're able to take notes and remember how to do these things that I taught you. So real quick, let's jump into our objective for today. This is going to be all about the main idea. Remember, we did this in the very beginning of the school year when we read Escape North. We had to come up with main ideas and supporting details, so you guys are very familiar with how to do this. Our objective says students will be able to generate the main idea of a text by annotating. Let's unpack some of these words. The first word is generate. To generate means to come up with. Basically, what I'm asking you to do is on your own come up with the main idea without going into the text and using word for word, line for line, a sentence. You are going to be paraphrasing for this. Remember, paraphrasing was the first lesson I introduced to you guys last week. The second key word is main idea. The main idea is what the text is mostly about. It's not very specific. You're not going in and giving me a whole bunch of details that really don't necessarily need to be in the main idea. It's more general. Overall, what is this text mostly about? The main idea should have a topic and it shouldn't be any longer than a few words. Last but not least is annotating. This lesson that I gave you guys earlier this week. To annotate pretty much means to mark up a text by looking at its features. Before I show you guys how I want you to do the main idea for the homework, I'm going to show you the steps, the thinking steps that I have for annotating. All right, so just in case you're not sick of hearing me say this a million times, I'm going to say it 1,000,001. A main idea is what the text is mostly about. It is very general. There should be no specific details. Those very, very specific details are going to be reserved for your key supporting details. So for instance, this is one way you can think about it. Go fishing for supporting details. Grab your fishing rod, put some bait on it, throw it into the text, pull out a line directly, and then quote it. That's your supporting details. You don't want to do that with your main idea. Instead, paraphrase for the main idea. So let me show you how to do this. All right, so take a look at the notes that I gave you for annotations. There are 3 steps. Step 1 says to pretty much look at any type of text features and determine if the text is nonfiction or fiction. Step 2 is to name the task. Remember, when you name a task, it's usually given in a form of a question. So when you do these new ELA articles, it'll be like, okay, what is the main idea? Or compare and contrast. That's the task. Don't forget that. Anytime you have a question or they're asking you to complete some type of work, that is the task. So name the task, and then step 3, dive into the text and find examples of that task. So let me show you how it's done using the homework assignment on the Olympians, and I'm going to use the same platform you're using, Virtual News ELA. This is the article for the first homework assignment that was on Tuesday, Ancient Greece and the Olympic Games. If I'm taking a look at this article, I see a lot of things right off the bat when I'm talking about step 1 of annotating, right? So I noticed that there's a title. Ancient Greece and the Olympic Games. That's my title. I also see like visuals, right? So this picture here would be considered a visual. And I'm also noticing headings. So like the competitors, right? So this would be considered, and I'm just gonna go ahead and write it, a heading. Notice that as I'm looking at all these text features for step 1, I'm also taking a second and I'm thinking about, okay, so how can this help me generate my main idea? Generally, what is this text going to be mostly about? So already I know that it's giving me some type of information about the Olympic Games. I'm not going in, I'm saying, okay, well, you know, Hera had to fight, who was Zeus's wife, she had to fight Athena. Like, that's not what I'm doing. It's a very general, this is talking about the information about the Olympic Games and who's competing. So I'm putting that in my annotation. I'm going to keep going. Here's another visual. I can see that this is related to the competitors, who's competing. And now I see another heading, War and Peace. So again, this is more information about the Olympic Games. And then it may tell me a little bit about exactly about, you know, why it's important that these Olympic Games were happening in Greece or later on. It's about this idea of maybe unity or maybe declaring space for people, right? So I'm just gonna say unity because it may be something I have to go back in and take a look at even more in depth. And then last but not least, I see a last visual. So like, this is step 1. So if we're talking about annotating, just taking a look. Do I see dates? Is this fiction? Is this nonfiction? You know, I do notice a date, which makes me think that this is going to be a nonfiction text. So I just go in, I'm annotating some things. This is also a great opportunity if you wanted to like chunk paraphrase. I know we've learned that in the past, where you take it section by section and then on the side you can paraphrase and say what each thing is about. So like, for instance, the ancient Greeks loved competition of all sorts. Each year, the various city-states of Greece sent athletes to festivals of games which were held to honor the gods, right? So this whole section here, or these 2 sentences here, just giving me an overview about the importance of the Olympics to the Greeks. So, as you see, I just went in, I highlighted some things, I annotated. Now, this is the part where I want to talk about annotating for the second step, which is figuring out the task. If I go to activities here, let's say I did the quiz, now I want to do the writing portion. It'll ask me, what is the main idea of the article? Use evidence from the text to explain your thinking. This is step 2 of annotating. It's figuring out the task. The task is to understand what is the main idea. So again, main ideas are going to be very, very general. That means I'm going to go back into the text and I'm going to figure out in my own words, because I am paraphrasing, in my own words, what is this mostly about? Let the headings help you. The competitors, War and Peace. Let the visuals help you. And now I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna press edit and I'm gonna write my answer, right? So I'm gonna say the main idea of this article is the history of the Olympic Games and how it started in Greece. Now, this is just a very general statement and I'm paraphrasing. I didn't go in and I didn't pick out a sentence from the text, right? And I didn't throw it in for my first sentence as a main idea. However, I want to back this up by using evidence. So this is where I go fishing. This is where I go in and I look at the subheadings and I look at different parts of the text and then put that into my answer. So I'm going to start with my transition word. For example, comma, in the text, it mentions, and now I can add in, right, some sort of line from the text. That, and now I'm going to put in my quotation marks. each year, the various city-states of Greece sent athletes to festivals of games, which were held to honor the gods. Period. So like that's an example, right, of how the main idea is about this history. Now I can go even further with even more evidence. If you could find 3 pieces of evidence, then I know you mastered this text, right? Another example is mentioned under the subheading, the competitors. I'm going to capitalize because that's the title of the subheading. Period. This section of the text talks about who used to participate in the Olympic Games and how women, because that's important, right, were, let's go down, scroll down. Only unmarried women could participate in the competitions, which consisted mainly of foot races. Eventually, women were able to participate in and attend the Olympic Games. But in the beginning, it says women were not allowed to compete or even to watch. Right? So that's also important. So I'm going to say, and how women were originally not allowed to compete or even watch. Then things changed for women. All right, so this is just an example of how you can go and annotate a text, come up with these answers. Remember, your main idea is just very general. I didn't mention women in my main idea sentence when I said that this main idea of the article is the history of the Olympic Games and how it started in Greece. I'm not mentioning the gods and the goddesses. I'm not mentioning any dates. I'm not mentioning the role of women in this, right? All of those really rich details should be reserved for the supporting or the key details that go afterwards, all right? So my main idea is that, boom, this whole text is mostly about the history of the Olympic Games and how it started in Greece. And now everything I add after that will just be rich, supplementary, right, to this idea of the main idea. All right, I just used a lot of words to say something super simple. Main idea, general. What is it mostly about? Everything else are going to be details, specific key details. All right, scholars, I hope that review was helpful for you. I'm about to go grab some lunch, but I will see you again soon. Love you. Bye.